Imagine this. A powerful billionaire CEO, cold, untouchable, feared by everyone, hires a maid to keep his world in order. But what begins as just a job soon spirals into a dangerous web of secrets, betrayal, and forbidden love. What happens when the Ice King himself starts to fall for the one woman he was never meant to notice? Stay tuned, because this story will take you on a roller coaster of love, lies, and shocking twists you won't see coming. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. The rain had slowed by the time Emily Clark stepped off the subway, but the city still dripped with it. Gutters overflowing, taxis hissing over wet pavement, the smell of damp concrete in the air. She tightened her grip on the worn leather handle of her small suitcase, her fingers stiff from both the cold and nerves. Her eyes lifted. There it was. The building rose above her like something pulled from a dream, or a nightmare. 50 stories of steel and glass, its windows glinting with an almost arrogant sharpness against the grey evening sky. The upper floors disappeared into the clouds, as if the tower itself didn't want ordinary people to know where it ended. Emily stood for a long moment at the curb, soaked shoes pressing into the wet sidewalk, trying to steady her breathing. "This is crazy," she whispered to herself. "This is completely, utterly crazy." But she had no choice. Her savings were gone. The hospital bills for her mother had drowned her in debt. She had tried everything, waitressing, temp jobs, cleaning houses by the dozen, and still it wasn't enough. When the agency called about a live-in position for one of the wealthiest men in New York City, she had said yes before she could talk herself out of it. "Just keep your head down, Em," she muttered under her breath. "It's just another job. A roof over your head. 3 meals a day. You can do this." The doorman, tall in a navy coat, opened the door for her, his gaze polite but curious. His eyes flicked to her modest clothes, her scuffed shoes, then softened with a faint smile. "Miss Clark?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. Mr. Reid is expecting you. Elevator on the right. Penthouse." Her heart gave a thud at the word. Penthouse. She wasn't just walking into someone's home. She was walking into a world entirely different from her own. The elevator doors opened with a hush. Emily stepped inside, clutching her suitcase like a lifeline. As the doors closed, she caught her own reflection in the mirrored walls, pale face, tired eyes, brown hair pulled into a loose bun. She looked like a girl who didn't belong here. The numbers blinked higher and higher until the elevator glided to a stop. The doors opened silently, and Emily stepped into another world. The penthouse stretched before her in cold magnificence. The living room was vast, framed with floor-to-ceiling windows that displayed the city like a painting, Manhattan glittering beneath the heavy sky. The floors shone with dark wood, the furniture sleek and modern, every line precise. Not a speck of dust anywhere. It was beautiful. And yet, it felt empty. There were no photographs on the walls. No flowers on the tables. No sign that anyone lived here at all, save for the faint scent of cologne lingering in the air. Emily set her suitcase down, her breath catching when she heard footsteps. He appeared from the hallway. Alexander Reid. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, his black suit fitting him with effortless perfection. His hair was dark, swept neatly back, his jawline sharp, his expression severe. His eyes, grey, cold, unreadable, rested on her as if she were something left on his doorstep by mistake. "You're late," he said, his voice low and clipped, each word measured like he despised wasting them. Emily straightened, her throat suddenly dry. "The subway was delayed, sir." "Excuses don't interest me." His gaze traveled over her quickly, her clothes, her shoes, the suitcase at her feet. The look wasn't cruel, exactly. It was worse. It was dismissive. She forced her chin up. "I'm here now. Ready to work." For a moment, silence. His eyes narrowed just slightly, as though testing whether she would break under the weight of his stare. Finally, he spoke again. "Your room is down the hall. Second door on the left. You will start tomorrow morning at 6. Breakfast will be ready. If you're late, you're gone." The words landed like a slap. He didn't even ask her name, though he clearly already knew it. "Yes, Mr. Reid," she said tightly. He gave the smallest nod, as though checking off an item on a list. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face shifting in an instant from cold indifference to something sharper, darker. He stepped aside, answering. "I told you not to call me on this line," he said, voice low and fierce. A pause. His shoulders stiffened. "No. If anyone finds out about this, it all comes crashing down. Do you understand me?" Emily froze. The words sent a chill up her spine. Something about the way he said them, like he was holding an entire empire together with sheer will, made her chest tighten. He moved swiftly into his office, closing the door with a snap. Emily exhaled slowly. Her hands shook slightly as she picked up her suitcase and walked down the hall to her new room. But the words echoed in her mind, refusing to fade. "If anyone finds out about this, it all comes crashing down." Emily woke at 5 the next morning, her alarm buzzing softly beside her bed. The room the agency had given her was small but comfortable. Clean sheets, a narrow dresser, a single window overlooking the city below. She dressed in her plain maid's uniform, pulled her hair back, and stepped quietly into the kitchen. The appliances gleamed like they belonged in a showroom. She hesitated before touching them, afraid she might break something worth more than her entire salary. After fumbling through a few minutes of trial and error, she figured out the stove and began cooking. Eggs, toast, coffee. Simple, safe. By 6 sharp, the table was set. She wiped her hands on her apron and stood back, nervous. At 6:30, footsteps echoed down the hall. Alexander Reid entered the kitchen with the same presence as the night before, controlled, sharp, unshakable. His suit was pressed, his tie straight, as if he had woken already perfect. He didn't say good morning. Didn't even glance at her at first. He pulled out a chair and sat, unfolding the newspaper as though she weren't there. Emily clenched her jaw. Rude doesn't even begin to cover it. He ate silently for several minutes. Finally, his eyes lifted, cool and detached. "You're standing there like you're waiting for applause. Do something useful. Clear the counter." Her face burned. She grabbed a cloth, scrubbing at the already spotless counter. "You're welcome for the eggs," she muttered under her breath. "What was that?" His voice cut sharp. "Nothing," she said quickly, avoiding his gaze. For a moment, she thought he'd press her. But he only went back to his coffee, his silence heavy enough to fill the room. The rest of the day followed the same pattern. Orders, silence, more orders. He seemed perfectly comfortable living in a world where words weren't wasted, and people existed only to obey. But Emily couldn't help noticing the cracks. At night, when she finished her chores, she passed by his study. More than once, she saw him sitting in the dark with a glass of whiskey, staring at something on his desk. Once, she caught a glimpse, a framed photo. But every time she came to clean, the photo was turned face down. And when he thought no one was watching, his shoulders sagged, the weight of something invisible pressing down on him. On the third night, she found him slumped over his desk. The whiskey bottle lay on its side, the glass half spilled. Her heart lurched. "Mr. Reid," she whispered, stepping closer. He didn't stir. Panic prickled at her skin. She shook his arm gently. "Mr. Reid?" "Alexander." His phone buzzed on the desk. The screen lit up with a message. "You can't bury the past forever." Emily froze. Her breath caught. "Alexander," she said again, shaking him harder. His eyes snapped open suddenly, storm gray and furious. "What are you doing in here?" "You passed out," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "I thought something was wrong." "I don't need your pity," he growled, shoving the glass aside. "I wasn't pitying you," she shot back, surprising herself. "I was making sure you weren't dead." His jaw tightened. "You work here." "That's it," he said, his voice low and sharp. "Stay out of my life." Something inside Emily snapped. Then stop drinking yourself to death. Because if you keep this up, Mr. Reid, your empire won't mean anything. Do you even care? Silence. For the first time, his mask slipped, just slightly. His eyes flickered, grey storm clouds softening for a heartbeat, as though her words had struck somewhere deep. Then it was gone. He stood, towering over her, his presence heavy enough to make her breath falter. Go to your room, Emily, he said coldly. Now. Her pulse raced, but she didn't look away. And in that fragile moment of defiance, Alexander Reid looked at her differently. Not as an employee, not as a servant, but as someone who had the nerve to see through his ice. The night after their confrontation, Emily lay awake in her small room, staring at the ceiling. Every word she had hurled at him replayed in her head, bouncing back with equal parts shame and defiance. Do you even care? She had crossed a line. She knew it. She was supposed to keep her head down, do her job, and stay invisible. That was what she had promised herself when she first walked into this penthouse. But there was something about Alexander Reid that made silence impossible. He was unbearable, cold, sharp, dismissive. And yet beneath all that steel, she had glimpsed something else. The way his eyes had flickered, the way his mask had cracked, just for a heartbeat, when she challenged him. Emily turned on her side, clutching her pillow. I should stay out of it. It's none of my business. But the truth sat heavy in her chest. For reasons she couldn't explain, it had already become her business. The next morning, Alexander was gone before she woke. The house was too quiet without his footsteps echoing through the halls. Emily busied herself with her chores, vacuuming, dusting, ironing his endless supply of starched shirts. She found herself in his study again, though she hesitated at the door. The whiskey bottle was gone, the desk cleared, the framed photo still turned face down. Her fingers itched. Slowly, she reached for it. She hesitated, her heart pounding, then turned it over. The photo was of a woman. She was beautiful, dark hair, bright smile, her hand resting gently on the shoulder of a man Emily instantly recognized. Alexander. But he looked different, softer. His arm was wrapped around the woman, his smile unguarded. It was a version of him Emily couldn't reconcile with the man she knew now. She set the photo down quickly, guilt pricking her skin. Do you always snoop when your employer isn't home? Emily jumped, spinning around. Alexander stood in the doorway, his coat still on, his expression unreadable. Her face burned. I wasn't. You weren't what? His voice was calm, but sharp. Going through my things? Touching what doesn't belong to you? I was cleaning, she said quickly, though the words sounded weak even to her own ears. I saw the frame was dusty. His gaze dropped to the photo, then back to her. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, quickly smothered by anger. Don't touch my things again, he said, his voice low, dangerous. I'm sorry, Emily whispered. He turned, as though to walk away, but paused. His shoulders tightened. He looked back at her, his expression hard but his voice softer. You should learn to mind your own business, Emily. Curiosity can be dangerous. Her breath caught. I wasn't trying to. Dangerous, he repeated, his eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Emily's chest ached, her heart pounding in her ears. Then he walked away, leaving her trembling in the study. That night, she couldn't sleep again. She thought of the photo, the way he looked with that woman. Whoever she was, she had mattered. Deeply. Emily tossed and turned. She thought of her own father, how he had walked out when she was 10, leaving her mother and younger brother to fend for themselves. How she had learned that men left, always. How she had built her walls high and thick. Maybe that was why she recognized it, the way Alexander lived behind his own walls. And maybe that was why, when she found herself in the kitchen at midnight, she wasn't surprised to see him there too. He stood at the counter, pouring water into a glass, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up. He glanced at her. Can't sleep. Neither can you, she said before she could stop herself. He arched an eyebrow. Touché. Silence stretched. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator, the distant echo of rain against the windows. You shouldn't drink so much, she said quietly. His jaw tightened. You shouldn't lecture me. I wasn't. You were. He took a sip of water, his gaze unreadable. Then, softer, why do you care? The question stunned her. I don't, she said too quickly. He gave a small, humorless smile. Liar. Her cheeks flushed. Fine. Maybe I do. Because watching someone destroy themselves when they don't have to, it's hard. His eyes held hers for a long moment, searching, weighing. Then he looked away. Go to bed, Emily. She turned to leave, but just before she reached the doorway, his voice stopped her. My wife's name was Claire. Emily froze. She turned slowly. The woman in the photo. He nodded once, his face shadowed. She died 5 years ago. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Emily swallowed. I'm sorry. He didn't respond. Just set the glass down, turned, and walked away. That night, Emily lay awake again. But this time, it wasn't anger that kept her up. It was the echo of his voice, the glimpse of raw pain beneath the ice. The first crack in the armor. A storm rolled over the city the next evening, lightning flashing against the skyline, thunder rumbling deep and low. The penthouse lights flickered once, then twice. Emily paused mid-step, clutching the laundry basket in her arms. Then, with a final clap of thunder, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the apartment. She set the basket down carefully, her heart racing. The storm outside illuminated the windows in brief bursts of white light, throwing the room into jagged shadows. Great, she muttered. Just great. She fumbled her way toward the kitchen, searching for candles or a flashlight. That was when she heard it, the sound of footsteps. Mr. Reid, she called. Over here. His voice came from the living room, calm but closer than she expected. Another flash of lightning lit up the room, and there he was, standing near the window, his silhouette tall and solid against the city's storm-lit backdrop. Do you have candles? She asked. In the drawer by the fridge. She found them quickly, striking a match and lighting the wicks. The warm glow filled the space, chasing away the sharp edges of the storm. Alexander leaned against the window, watching her. The light softened him, casting shadows across his sharp features, making him look almost human. You're not afraid of storms? He asked. She shook her head. I used to be. When I was little, I'd hide under the covers and pretend I couldn't hear it. But my brother, he used to count the seconds between lightning and thunder. He said it made the storm less scary. Just numbers, not monsters. A faint smile tugged at Alexander's lips. Smart brother. He was, she said softly. Silence stretched. The storm raged outside, but inside, the world felt suspended. You don't talk about yourself much, he said suddenly. Emily blinked. Neither do you. His eyes met hers. The grey storm in them seemed softer tonight, gentler. Lightning flashed again, and in that heartbeat of brightness, she saw something raw in his expression. Then he stepped closer. Her breath caught. The air between them shifted, heavy, charged, not unlike the storm outside. His hand brushed hers as he reached for the candle. Her skin tingled at the contact. She looked up, and for a moment, she thought he might kiss her. But he stopped, his jaw tightening. His hand lingered by hers for a fraction of a second longer before he pulled away. You don't know what you're asking for, he whispered, his voice rough. Emily's heart raced. I'm not asking for anything. Good, he said sharply, though his voice trembled. He turned away, pacing toward the hallway. The moment shattered like glass. Emily stood frozen, her chest aching, the storm roaring outside in perfect harmony with the chaos inside her. The next morning, The storm had passed, but the tension hadn't. Alexander was cold again, distant, his walls rebuilt. Emily tried to shake it off, but she couldn't stop thinking about the way he had looked at her, the way his voice had cracked. She carried the laundry basket down the hall, humming softly to herself, when she noticed something strange. One of the doors she had never seen open before was ajar. Curiosity tugged at her. She pushed it gently, peering inside. Her breath caught. It was a nursery. Frozen in time. The crib stood neatly made, tiny clothes folded on the shelves, toys lined up as though waiting for small hands that would never come. Dust coated everything, but nothing had been taken away. Emily stepped inside slowly, her heart pounding. This room, it didn't belong in this house of steel and glass. It belonged to someone softer, someone who had once dreamed of lullabies and laughter. A sudden sound behind her made her spin around. Alexander stood in the doorway. His face was pale, his eyes burning. "What are you doing in here?" His voice was low, dangerous. I didn't mean to. I told you to stay out of my business." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." "Get out," he said through clenched teeth. Her chest tightened. She hesitated, then stepped closer instead of back. "This was your child's room, wasn't it?" Something shattered in his expression. He looked at her with pure rage. No, not rage. Something deeper. Something broken. "She died," he said hoarsely. "Claire and our son. Both of them. Gone." Emily's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." He turned away sharply, his shoulders rigid. "Go." But as Emily left the room, one detail burned itself into her mind. On the dresser, half buried under dust, she had seen a birth certificate. Her eyes had caught the name, the date of birth. But the date of death had been left blank. The morning after discovering the nursery, Emily's chest felt heavy with secrets. She moved through her chores mechanically, her thoughts replaying what she had seen over and over, the tiny crib, the untouched toys, the folded baby clothes. But most of all, the birth certificate. The name Ethan Reid had stared back at her in faded ink. The date of birth clear as day. But where there should have been a date of death, the space was blank. She wanted to believe it was a mistake, an oversight. That Alexander's grief had been so deep he couldn't bring himself to finish the paperwork. But the way the room had looked, the dust, yes, but not abandonment. Someone had been in there. Someone had been preserving it. And the strangest thing, some of the toys looked newer than the others, their colors brighter, their edges less worn. Her thoughts tangled. Could the child still be alive? No, he said both his wife and son died. Why would he lie? The weight of it pressed on her until she couldn't stand it anymore. By afternoon, she found herself standing outside the nursery door again. She stared at the handle, her palms clammy. "You can't go back in," she whispered to herself. "You can't. You already saw too much." But curiosity clawed at her, stronger than fear. Her fingers turned the knob. The door creaked open. The room looked exactly as it had before. But now, in the soft daylight, she noticed more. A faint scent, almost imperceptible, baby powder. Fresh. Her stomach twisted. She moved toward the dresser, her hand brushing against the certificate again. The paper trembled in her grasp. Ethan Reid. Her eyes scanned the page desperately, looking for something she had missed. At the bottom, in faint handwriting, a note, "Keep safe." Her heart pounded. Emily. She spun around. Alexander stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes blazing with fury. She froze, the certificate still in her hands. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp, dangerous, vibrating with rage barely contained. I was just. I told you never to come in here." "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean." Didn't mean. He stepped into the room, towering over her. "You touched what you shouldn't. You pried into what wasn't yours. What gives you the right?" Her throat tightened. She wanted to shrink away, but something inside her refused to bend. "Because I care," she whispered. His jaw tightened. His eyes burned. "You don't get to care," he snapped. "You're here to work. To keep things clean. That's it." "I'm not blind, Alexander." The words spilled from her before she could stop them. "You say your wife and son are dead, but this room, it doesn't look like death. It looks like waiting." His breath hitched, so faint she almost missed it. Her voice softened. "Why is there no date of death on the certificate? Why does this room look like someone's keeping it ready?" For a long moment, silence stretched between them. His hands curled into fists at his sides. His chest rose and fell sharply. Finally, his voice came, low and hoarse. "Because my son is alive." Emily's eyes widened. Her heart lurched. "What?" He turned away, his shoulders rigid, his voice breaking for the first time since she'd known him. "Claire died that night. The car crash. But Ethan, he survived. I told the world they both were gone. It was the only way to keep him safe." Emily's knees felt weak. "Safe from what?" His jaw clenched. "From my family. From the vultures who would use him as a pawn. From enemies who'd destroy him just to hurt me. You don't know the world I live in, Emily. You don't know what people like me attract." She swallowed hard, her mind spinning. "So you hid him?" "Yes." His voice was a growl now, thick with pain. "He lives far from here, with someone I trust. He doesn't even know who I am. And it has to stay that way." Emily's throat ached. Her heart twisted. "You live in this house like a ghost," she whispered. "And all this time, your son, your child, is out there without his father." His eyes snapped to hers, blazing. "Don't you dare judge me. You think I don't want to be with him? You think I don't ache every day, knowing he's out there, calling someone else dad? But if keeping him away from me means he's alive, then I'll live with the ache." Emily's eyes burned with tears she hadn't expected. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, but she held herself still. "Alexander." He shook his head, cutting her off. "You've seen too much. Don't speak of this again. To anyone." Her lips trembled. "I wouldn't. I swear." "Good," he said, his voice rough. "Because if anyone else finds out, it won't just be me who suffers. It'll be Ethan." The words landed heavy, final. He turned and walked out, leaving her standing in the room, the truth crashing over her like a tidal wave. The next few days were a blur. Emily went through her routines, but everything felt different now. Every glance at Alexander carried the weight of what she knew. Every silence between them felt charged with secrets. She thought often of Ethan, the little boy out there, alive but hidden. Did he look like Alexander? Did he smile like Claire? Did he know, even faintly, that somewhere his father ached for him? She wanted to ask questions, but Alexander avoided her. He buried himself in work, leaving early, returning late, barely speaking a word. At night, she passed by his study and saw him staring at the photo of Claire again. Once, she heard him whisper her name. It broke something in Emily she hadn't known was still whole. One afternoon, while dusting the bookshelves in the study, Emily's phone buzzed. She frowned. It was a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Silence at first. Then a man's voice, low and rough. "You need to leave that house." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "You don't know what you've walked into. Alexander Reid is not the man you think he is. If you stay, you'll regret it." Her hand trembled. "Who is this?" The line went dead. Emily's pulse raced. Her breath came fast. She turned slowly, scanning the room, half expecting someone to be watching her. But there was no one. Just silence. Her phone buzzed again. A text this time. "He lies to everyone. He'll lie to you too. Leave before it's too late. Emily's heart pounded. She typed back quickly, "Who are you?" No reply. Her hands shook as she shoved the phone back into her pocket. That night, she confronted Alexander. He was in the living room, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring out the window at the city lights. "Someone called me today," she said, her voice shaking but steady. He turned, his expression unreadable. "And they told me to leave. That you're lying to me. That you're dangerous." His jaw clenched. "Who was it?" "I don't know. They hung up. Then they texted me." His eyes darkened, storm clouds gathering. He set the glass down sharply. "Show me the message." She handed him her phone. He read it, his expression unreadable, then handed it back. "You'll get more of these," he said flatly. "They'll try to scare you. They'll try to make you doubt me." Her breath hitched. "So you admit it's true, there are people watching us?" His silence was answer enough. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "Because it wasn't your burden to carry." Her voice cracked. "You think you can keep me in the dark, like I'm some servant who doesn't matter. But I live here, Alexander. I'm already in this, whether you like it or not." His eyes flashed. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I told you before, curiosity is dangerous. If you're smart, Emily, you'll keep your head down. Don't dig into things you don't understand." "But I do understand," she shot back, tears in her eyes. "I understand grief. I understand what it's like to lose family. But this isn't just grief, Alexander. This is fear. And it's eating you alive." His breath came heavy. For a moment, she thought he might explode. Instead, he whispered, "You're right." Her chest tightened. He stepped back, his hands trembling slightly as he raked them through his hair. "They'll never stop coming for me. For Ethan. That's why I lied. That's why I keep everyone at arm's length. Because the moment you care, the moment you let someone close, that's when they use it against you." Emily's eyes blurred with tears. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that closeness wasn't weakness. But before she could speak, he turned abruptly and walked toward the hallway. "Stay out of it, Emily," he said hoarsely. "For your own good." She stood frozen, her chest aching, her phone still burning in her pocket. But deep inside, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't out of it anymore. And she couldn't walk away. The night after the threatening call, Emily couldn't sleep. Every sound in the penthouse felt magnified, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft buzz of the city lights outside, even her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. She tossed beneath her blanket, staring up at the ceiling. His hiding too much. His drowning in secrets, and I'm already caught in them. But why? Why do I feel like I want to carry them with him, even if they destroy me? The thought scared her. It thrilled her. When she couldn't stand it anymore, she slipped quietly from her room and padded down the hall. A sliver of golden light poured from under Alexander's study door. She hesitated. "Don't knock. Go back to bed. Stay safe." But her hand lifted anyway. She tapped gently. A pause. Then his voice, "Come in." She stepped inside. Alexander sat at his desk, tie loosened, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Papers were scattered around him, but his expression wasn't the usual cold mask, it was tired. Human. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up. Emily shook her head. "Neither can you." He gave a humorless smile. "Sleep is a luxury I don't afford myself." For a moment, silence filled the room. She watched him pour a drink, amber liquid catching the light. Her chest tightened. "You don't have to carry all of it alone," she whispered. His eyes snapped to hers, sharp but vulnerable. "Don't I? Because every time I've let someone in, Emily, I've paid for it in blood. Do you understand that?" She stepped closer, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. Then let me be the exception. His jaw clenched. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. You don't know what you're asking. I do, she said. I'm asking you to stop pretending you're made of ice. I've seen through it, Alexander. I know you're hurting. I know you're afraid. But you don't have to push me away. He turned, his eyes blazing. You think this is some fairy tale? That if you care enough, it all gets better? That my enemies will disappear? That Ethan will suddenly be safe? That the ghosts will stop haunting me? Her breath trembled. No. But I think if you keep shutting everyone out, you'll break. For a long moment, they stared at each other. The tension in the air was electric, thick enough to choke on. Finally, his voice dropped, hoarse. Emily, I can't stop thinking about you. Her heart stopped. He looked tortured, his hands balling into fists at his sides. Every time you walk into a room, I feel it. Every time you speak, you break through the walls I've built. And I hate it. Because wanting you is dangerous. For you. For me. Her breath caught. Her skin tingled. Then hate me, she whispered, stepping closer. If that's what it takes. Hate me, but don't lie. Something in him snapped. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his hands gripping her face as his lips crashed against hers. The kiss was fierce, desperate, like a man starving. She gasped against him, her hands clutching his shirt, feeling the tremor in his body. For a moment, the world fell away. There was no penthouse, no secrets, no lies. Just heat, want, and the terrifying relief of being wanted back. When he pulled away, his breath was ragged. This can't happen. Emily's voice shook. It already did. He cursed under his breath, dragging a hand through his hair. You don't understand. If they know, if anyone knows, you'll be a target. I don't care, she whispered fiercely. You're worth the risk. His eyes softened, pain flickering through the storm. And what if I'm not? She stepped forward again, her forehead resting against his chest. Then let me be the one to decide that. For a long time, they stood in silence, hearts pounding together. And for the first time since she met him, Alexander Reid held her, not like a boss, not like a stranger, but like a man who'd finally allowed himself to need someone. The next morning, everything felt different. Emily floated through her chores with a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt in years. Her lips tingled with the memory of his kiss, her heart replaying his whispered confession. But beneath the warmth, unease stirred. Because Alexander was different too. At breakfast, he was quiet, not cold, but distracted. His eyes lingered on her longer, softer. But when she met his gaze, he looked away quickly, as though afraid someone might see. He's ashamed, she realized. Not of me, but of wanting me. Her chest tightened. By afternoon, she found herself back in the study, dusting shelves. A folder sat open on the desk, full of documents. She shouldn't have looked, but curiosity tugged. And when she glanced down, her blood froze. It was a financial ledger. Transfers, dates, amounts, money moved in and out of offshore accounts. And at the bottom, a signature. Alexander's. Her hands trembled. This doesn't look legal. Before she could think further, the door opened. Alexander froze when he saw her standing by his desk, the folder open. His expression shifted instantly, from surprise to fury. What are you doing? His voice was sharp, lethal. Emily's heart pounded. I was just cleaning. I didn't mean to. You looked, he snapped. He crossed the room in 2 strides, slamming the folder shut. I told you to stay out of things that aren't your concern. Her eyes burned. And what if your secrets become mine by accident? What then? Am I supposed to pretend I didn't see? His glare was ice. Yes. Her chest ached. I thought, after last night. Last night was a mistake. His words cut like glass. Emily flinched. You don't mean that. He turned away, his shoulders rigid, his voice colder than ever. I do. You're a distraction I can't afford. You're soft. And softness gets people killed in my world. Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. You kissed me. You told me you. I told you nothing, he interrupted, his voice a whip. Don't twist this into some fantasy. You work for me. That's all. The words shattered her. Her lip trembled, but she forced her chin up. If you wanted to hurt me, Alexander, you succeeded. She turned and walked toward the door, her vision swimming. But before she could leave, his hand slammed against the wall beside her, trapping her in place. His breath was ragged, his eyes wild. Don't you understand? He whispered harshly. The more I want you, the more dangerous it becomes. If they know, if they even suspect, he trailed off, his voice breaking. Emily's tears spilled freely now. Then let me choose. Don't push me away just to protect me. He stared at her, torn, broken. His hand trembled beside her head. But finally, he stepped back, retreating into his armor. You should pack your things. Her breath stopped. What? It's not safe for you here anymore. His voice was flat, final. Go before it's too late. Emily shook her head, disbelief crushing her. You can't mean that. I do. His eyes were unreadable again, the Ice King restored. Leave, Emily. Now. She searched his face desperately for a crack, for the man who had held her last night. But all she saw was stone. Her heart broke as she whispered, You're a coward. Then she walked out, her footsteps echoing like thunder in the hollow silence of the penthouse. Emily didn't remember the elevator ride down. Her body moved on autopilot, her suitcase dragging behind her, the sting of Alexander's words still carving through her chest. Leave, Emily. Now. She replayed it over and over, each echo louder, crueler. The city swallowed her whole, its neon lights and honking horns mocking the quiet devastation inside her. She walked without direction, tears slipping hot and silent down her cheeks. How could he? How could he pull me close one moment, then rip me apart the next? But deeper than heartbreak was fear. The ledger she'd seen. The calls he tried to hide. The threats. There was more going on than she understood. And now, out here in the open, she wasn't sure if she was safer or in more danger. Her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. Her breath froze when she read it. We warned him. Now it's your turn. Stay away, or you won't make it out alive. Emily stumbled into the nearest alley, clutching her chest. Her whole body trembled. They know about me. They know. Her mind screamed to run, to vanish, to disappear before she became another casualty of Alexander Reid's empire. But her heart screamed louder. If they're threatening me, they're threatening him too. I can't just walk away. She spun around, ready to hail a cab back to the penthouse, only to freeze when a shadow detached itself from the wall. A man stepped forward. Broad, dark coat, eyes glinting under the streetlight. Miss Clark. His voice was smooth, too smooth. Emily's stomach dropped. She bolted. Her suitcase clattered against the pavement, but she didn't stop. She darted through alleys, lungs burning, heart pounding, until a pair of headlights blinded her. A sleek black car screeched to a halt. The back door swung open. Emily, get in. Her heart nearly burst. Alexander. She didn't hesitate. She threw herself into the car, the door slamming shut behind her. Tires screeched as they tore away from the curb, the shadowy figure shrinking in the distance. Emily pressed herself against the seat, trembling. Alexander's jaw was rigid, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. You shouldn't have left. His voice was sharp, but underneath it was panic. You told me to. Emily snapped, tears spilling over. You pushed me away, and now. Now they've marked you, he cut in, his voice low, grim. You're in this whether you want to be or not. Her chest tightened. Who are they? His silence was louder than any answer. Finally, he exhaled, his shoulders sagging. People I should never have crossed. People who don't forgive, and don't forget. Emily's throat tightened. And the money. The accounts. Alexander, what have you done? He didn't look at her. His jaw clenched. Things I can't take back. Silence pressed between them, heavy with everything unsaid. But then, softer, almost broken, he added, and now you're paying the price for my sins. Her chest ached, torn between fear and longing. She wanted to scream at him, to demand the truth. But instead, her hand reached across the console, trembling, and closed around his. Then stop running from me, she whispered. If I'm already in danger, let me stand with you. His grip tightened around hers, desperate, as if he feared she'd vanish. And for the first time, Alexander Reid let himself lean into someone else's strength. But the reprieve didn't last. Because when they finally pulled into the underground garage of the penthouse, the world shattered. The car door opened before they even parked. A gun pressed to Alexander's temple. Emily screamed. Out! A voice ordered. Both of you. They were surrounded. Men in dark suits, faces grim, weapons drawn. And at the center, stepping forward with a smile colder than death itself. Ethan. Emily's blood turned to ice. Ethan. Her voice cracked. But you, he said, you were his brother. Ethan's smile widened, cruel and mocking. Oh, I am. Half-brother, to be exact. But Alexander here forgot to mention that he built his empire on lies. On money that wasn't his. Money that belonged to my family. Alexander's face was carved from stone. That's not true. Isn't it? Ethan's eyes gleamed with venom. Our father left me nothing. But you, he jabbed a finger into Alexander's chest. You stole what should have been mine. And now, you parade around this city like a king, while I've been forced to crawl in your shadow. Emily's stomach twisted. So this is about money. Ethan's gaze flicked to her, sharp and assessing. It's about justice. And you, sweetheart, are just a pawn in his little game. Alexander surged forward, fury blazing. Leave her out of this. But the gun pressed harder against his temple, halting him. Ethan chuckled darkly. You think I care about her? No. But she's the perfect way to make you suffer. Emily's chest tightened with fear, but also clarity. This was the storm Alexander had been trying to shield her from. And now she stood in the center of it. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling but steady. Hurting me won't give you peace. It won't fix the past. It'll only destroy whatever's left of you. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. But then it hardened. You don't understand. He took everything. And I'll take everything back, starting with you. He raised the gun, pointed at her now. Alexander roared, shoving the man beside him and lunging forward. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Gunfire. Emily dropped to the ground, covering her head as the sound of violence filled the garage. When the ringing in her ears cleared, she looked up. Alexander was on the ground, blood seeping from his shoulder. Ethan stood over him, gun shaking in his hand. You don't deserve to live, Ethan hissed. Emily's scream tore through the air. She scrambled forward, throwing herself between them. Stop! Please! She cried, tears streaming down her face. If you want to kill him, you'll have to kill me too. The garage went silent. Ethan's hands trembled around the weapon. His eyes flickered, rage, pain, doubt. And for the first time, Alexander's voice broke through the silence, raw and pleading. Don't do this, Ethan. We're both broken by him. Don't let his sins define us. Ethan's jaw clenched. His finger twitched on the trigger. Emily reached up slowly, gently placing her hand on the gun, lowering it toward the floor. Her voice shook, but it was steady enough to cut through the storm. You don't have to be like him. You don't have to end this with blood. For a moment, it seemed to work. Ethan's shoulders sagged, his grip loosening. His eyes glistened, tormented. But then, police sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Panic flashed in his gaze. He shoved Emily aside, dropping the gun with a clatter. I won't rot in a cage, he spat, before vanishing into the shadows. The men scattered with him, leaving the garage littered with echoes of violence. Emily turned to Alexander, blood soaking his shirt, his face pale but alive. She pressed her hands against his wound, sobbing. Stay with me. Please, stay with me. His hand, trembling, reached for her cheek. His voice was weak, but his words were clear. I told you. I'd only bring you pain. Emily shook her head fiercely, tears dripping onto his skin. You brought me truth. You brought me love. Don't you dare leave me now. His eyes softened, the storm finally breaking. And with the faintest smile, Alexander Reid whispered the words he'd been too afraid to say until now. I love you. Emily's heart cracked open, raw and whole all at once. She pressed her forehead to his, whispering through her tears. I love you too. Sirens wailed louder. Lights flashed. The world closed in. But in that moment, with his blood on her hands and his lips brushing hers in a final, fragile kiss, Emily knew one thing. Whatever storms came next, they would face them together. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet hope. Emily sat at Alexander's bedside, her fingers curled gently around his hand. The steady beep of the monitor was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. It meant he was alive. His shoulder was bandaged, his body weaker than she'd ever seen it. But his eyes, when they opened and found her, were still the same storm grey that had once terrified her. Now, they only made her heart ache with love. You should be resting, she whispered, brushing his hair back. And miss seeing you sitting here like you belong. His voice was low, hoarse, but threaded with warmth. Emily's throat tightened. She pressed his hand to her lips. I almost lost you. But you didn't. He squeezed her hand weakly, his gaze locking onto hers. Because of you. A silence stretched between them, not empty, but full. Full of everything they'd survived, everything they still didn't know about the future. Finally, Emily broke it. What happens now? Ethan's still out there. Alexander's jaw tightened. Shadows passed over his face. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure he never touches you again. Emily leaned closer, resting her forehead against his. We'll face it together. No more secrets. No more running. His eyes softened, and for the first time, Alexander Reid looked at peace. Outside the window, dawn broke over the city. The light touched the glass like a promise, painting the skyline in gold. And as Emily held him, she realized something she never thought possible. She had walked into his life as a maid, a stranger with nothing but debts and broken dreams. And somehow, she had become the only thing the Ice King couldn't live without. And that was just the beginning of Emily and Alexander's storm. Love. Betrayal. Secrets that could destroy them both. Do you think their love can truly survive the darkness closing in? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride, subscribe for more addictive stories like this, and share this video with someone who loves a good plot twist. Until next time, keep your heart open, but beware, because not every love story ends the way you expect.